Hi again, people. Okay, this is part two. I actually ran out of battery life and stayed in the garage for almost an hour doing that intro video to rappelling. So when I started putting it together, I was like, you know what, let me cut it into two. So basically I cut the film so it just starts basically where I cut off last time, and we'll get back into the introduction. Also, if you have specific questions about it in the comments, this is kind of more technical things that need to be done right. So if there's specific questions that either you saw something, put a hack time mark, like at 4:334, whatever the time hack is. That way I can click on that, open it, and see exactly what you're seeing, and then answer your question. So we'll go in and get into the introduction, the second part of the introduction, and then over time I'll start making different anchor knots, belay knots, and tie-offs, and safety knots, and all the other things. And then we'll get to the rappelling later on in the series. So this will just be one of those ongoing things. All right, enjoy. Oh, I forgot, I put this picture here. This is a good example of fast roping. I talk about fast roping maybe in this part of the first part, where I talk about you just put one rope over here. So this creates friction here, and then you have friction of the two hands. Fast roping, if you have the right rope, I mean, you really don't need gloves, but this guy doesn't have any pack or gear on. When you get a backpack with a bunch of gear, gun, etc., you got more weight, so then it takes more friction to slow you down. Gloves probably isn't a bad idea, but I don't even know what ropes they're using now. Hell, you may not need anything. I've seen guys that just put their feet together now. They don't even have to cross it over like this because the ropes are so big and you create so much friction with your hands. Anyway, here we go. Part two, intro. Each little webbing, each little tie off, you have, I mean, most gear, it's pretty standard that it's going to be certain strong. What is this? This says it is 30 kN. Okay? Now, when you talk about D-rings, it's a locking D-ring, remember? It'll flip like this unless I spin this up, and then it locks it. A lot of people call these a safety, put a safety D-ring. We didn't even use these. I mean, the shit we used to do, we didn't even have locking D-rings. We had the old metal, just regular old D-rings like this that were metal, so they were pretty strong. They weren't as light as this. And we would just put the rope through here, wrap around, and we'd jump off buildings and helicopters. We didn't have locking D-ring. You did that today, people would freak out. That's dangerous. You should never do anything without a lock. So when I'm going through this, I'm going to kind of tell you the difference between how they used to do it, how we used to do it, and how they do it now. And of course, now is a lot safer. There's a lot of redundancy. I don't know if injury is down. See, it used to be the only guys that really did rappelling was maybe your hardcore mountain guys that were climbing mountains and your military guys and police guys who were doing entries. That was the rappelling market. The climbing market wasn't as huge as it is now. There's more market for the climbing, and the cops and the military is kind of on that. Now, we don't even really freaking rappel anymore. We do fast roping. And they were just kind of starting fast roping. It was become popular when I was getting out around 95. We fast roped a few times, and it wasn't like we had it or we used it, because a fast rope, usually you want to have in an open. Fast roping is better like from a helicopter, because there's nothing. Fast roping down the side of a wall, a little dangerous. I'm not saying you can't do it. I don't even know if I've ever seen anybody do it. But fast roping is, there's no safety, there's no nothing. The rope's big and fat, and you use your hands and gloves to clinch, and you put your feet together, either crossing over the rope like so to make a lock, or you just put them together and you squeeze, and that creates friction with your hands, and you go straight down the rope. Fast roping is better because you don't have to clip up or unclip. I can have all my gear, I have all my shit, I grab the fast rope, and I go down, and when I hit the ground, I engage my weapon, I'm good to go. Whereas a rappel, when you're coming down, your rope's wrapped in here. So normally, you have to unlatch, you have to unhook. Now, if I had this and I was rappelling, we used to unwrap the rope because we didn't have multiple rings, and I don't know if I said like this, called the bone in between here. And we didn't have the bone to connect two D-rings for a quick release. So when we ended up going over we would rappel with something like this. This is my anchor point. we would be going down rappelling, and then when we got to the bottom, we would have to unhook our rope before we could leave. And that took time, because you have to unhook. Now, if it was a tactical and we knew the rope and the stretch and everything, we would want to time it to where the rope is just above the ground. So when I get to this point, the rope just unwinds itself and pops out of my D-ring, and then I can move. So if we could plan it that way to where the rope was at the right distance, that's good. The problem with a rope like that is if you don't plan it right and you end up 10, 15 feet above the ground, which I'll tell a crazy cup story. When we were training one day, we did that. And you end up 3 stories up and you're out of rope and there's no way down or up. You're kind of screwed. Guy had to let go. But I'll tell that story later. What was his name? Scotty Bennett. Anyway, hopefully remind me in the comments to tell that crazy rappel story when I'm doing these rappelling videos. So again, these are some of my D-rings and ropes, locking versus unlocking. What I got in here? I got some more rappel webbing gear. I have some string and cordage. This is a little double overhand knot to secure 2 ropes, and then this becomes my Prusik knot. So I also always kept some of these in here in case we had to adjust. Flexi cuffs are pretty strong, so if we had to clean up a rope or we want our rope clean, I could put a zip tie. Also, if we were going somewhere, somebody didn't bring cuffs or something, we could tape a couple of these, shove them in the pocket, and use my handcuffs. And of course, welding gloves work as good as rappelling gear. You buy these expensive rappelling gloves. We rappelled many times with welding gloves because we were in the military. We'd get them cheap from the welding. They were already in the system. And so we would just order welding gloves for our rappelling gear. A good rappelling glove will have this reinforced area because this is where you're going to be hanging onto the rope. So when your hand's in here and you're braking and the rope's going through it, it's on this extra protection. Because if you're rappelling a lot hard and fast, not only does the D-ring gets hot, your hand gets hot and your braking hand gets hot. Because the quicker the rope slides through, the more friction it creates, the more heat it creates. So this is like, and you notice I only have one of these gloves. I think I lost the other one or I gave it to somebody who was left-handed because this was my braking hand and I wouldn't wear a glove on this hand. I would just use it on the braking hand. These are a couple other good leather gloves with some reinforced regular old work gloves. These work fine for rappelling. I always kept a couple extra sets of gloves either for somebody on belay. I didn't go over on belay. Belay is another term I'll be using. Let me move this back a little bit. That damn cow's out there still raising hell. I gotta go see. Maybe one of the cows lost a baby and that's why the vulture's there and that's why the horses were kind of panicking a little bit. Because I noticed Buddy out there today, he's like this, he's like in his ears and he's doing this and he's all off balance. I'm like, what do they see over there? And I figured, maybe it's a pig, a fox, a coyote, something. Maybe they just saw something. So I kind of ignored it. But then they did it again today, and then today I saw like 8 or 10 vultures up top, and I went, okay, something must have got hurt and died, or maybe one of the cows lost a baby, it got through and it died or something. So I need to go over there and check that. Not that I can do anything, but just curiosity. So, hell, I was talking about belay. So what a belay guy does is, take this off real quick. What a belay guy does is if I've got a repeller and I've got a guy, let's say this is my little guy and this is Ricky coming down the thing, and I would yell before I started, on rappel, and the guy at the bottom, who would be my safety guy, would say, on belay. And that way I know I have somebody at the bottom. Now we wouldn't do this in a tactical situation. We didn't have belay. That's why I said a lot of the shit we did, people would be like freaking out now like, man, you jump out of a helicopter without a locking D-ring and no belay, no safety, no nothing? You're like, yeah. You'd go off the side of a building with no belay, man. Not only would we go off the side of a building, we would go off a building when we go upside down to where the rope would be like this, and the guys up top, we would control his descent. And as we want him to go lower, we would lower him, and right when he got to position, because this is his head, so he'd be going facing down the wall, and then right before he got to the wall, at the bottom, he would say stop, and then we would use that Prusik knot up here and tie him off. So he would stay right here. And then he could swing around, put his feet, talk to us, give commands, use his gun, get his mirror out, get his equipment, then we'd flip around, we put our feet up and our head down, and then we'd start looking in the window, which would be here at an angle. And we would gather intel and either get a person, see how many shooters, how many guns, etc. So this, when a guy's on belay, when we're doing training, this guy down here is if something happens while this guy's coming down and he yells, fall, meaning I unhooked, I lost something, I'm falling fast, he starts coming down. This guy down here's only job is to walk out and create this big loop. So when this guy's falling, instead of falling and hitting the ground, this guy backs away and he falls and it brings him in a loop, and then he just stops and he stands on the ground. Now, if the belay was good enough, and with this type of belay device right here, now a guy can just stand here, and when you yell fall, he just cranks down on this belay device and he spreads the rope, which creates friction and it stops you. So this is a little bit more controlled. Our way was a little more, because we didn't have fancy devices like they have now. So that's what a belay guy does. A belay guy is basically your safety guy. He's your protection if you fall. If something goes wrong, he can stop your fall so you don't hit the ground. If you're doing your knots right, you shouldn't be hitting the ground. I got something flashing here. Am my battery out or something? No, my battery looks still good. All right, so this is a shorter. Oh yeah, another thing I didn't go over on D-rings. This D-ring, you notice, has a little clamp here. Now, if this is open, this D-ring loses strength. So you always want your D-ring, when they give you the rating, they call it the major axis here, the long way. This is called the minor axis. This, you lose like 1/3 of the strength. If this is rated at 3,000 pounds, and I end up using this D-ring this way on its minor axis, this thing is probably only hold maybe 1,000 pounds. So they're not designed this way. They get their strength when the spine is straight up and down, and you're pulling either this way or this way on it, or both ways. But this little hook right here is kind of a pain in the butt when you want to get things out in a hurry, because it gets caught and it'll catch your rope. So the better device is, let's see if this one has it. Yeah, this one has it. So with this device, now what they have is called a gate and a trap or something. So it's smooth. So when you take your device off, your rope doesn't catch. It comes right off. Goes on easy, comes out easy. Goes on easy, comes out easy. Goes in tight, comes out easy. Remember when somebody yells gesundheit, you used to say as a kid? Comes out easy. The guys will get it. Maybe the girls will get it too. So when somebody says goes in tight or goes in tight, the guy would always yell, comes out easy. And you figure it out. So anyway, this is a smooth, and this makes loading and unloading easy. The rope doesn't get caught. But you don't lose the strength because it's got these little lips here, and this clamps down on those lips. And so you still get your strength. And then when you do this and you tighten it up, it makes it to where it can't open and you can't lose that strength. Locking device versus unlocking. Okay, covered a lot of things. Hell, I don't know how long I went. I just wanted to get a general thing. When I do the next episode, we'll go over some anchor, because an anchor is one of the most important things, because if it fails, you're screwed, you fall. But just about all things when it comes to rappelling is important. If your rope is bad, you fail. You know, every time you add another link into the chain, the weakest link is where it can go critical. So if my rope's good and my webbing's good and my D-ring's good, but my knot's bad, doesn't matter how good all these are, I'm screwed. If my knot's great and my D-rings are great, but my rope sucks and it's got a fray because people threw it on the ground, walked on it, it got dirty, it wasn't clean, and it's been burnt, melted, and left out in the sun, and it's dry rotted, it doesn't matter if my D-ring's good and my knots are good, because my rope sucks. So in rappelling or using things like this, your whole life matters on all the different components. Your anchor point, the rope you're using, your safety devices, your D-rings, your harness that you're wearing. If your harness isn't right, you're screwed. If your clip off is backwards, you're screwed. If you don't tighten your clip knot in your safety and you don't lock your D-ring and it opens up, you're screwed. Even though everything was perfect, because you didn't use a locking D-ring and now you hit a tree limb and it comes in here and you fall, and when you hit, you bounce, and this bounce is open and the rope comes off, and now you fall the rest of the way and die. So all these things come into play when you're rappelling. Knots, to me, was always a critical thing. If somebody took the time to learn the knots, to dress it, to set it, I already talked about this once. I'll go again real quick. I figure if you're still here, you're probably a little interested. So if I tie a knot, and we'll just do a little overhand knot. Everybody knows how to tie an overhand knot. I tied an overhand knot right here with 2 ropes. I tied an overhand knot here with 1 rope. Okay? Pretty much every idiot, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call you guys idiot. Pretty much anybody with 2 brain cells can figure out how to tie an overhand knot. Now, when I tie an overhand knot, there is tying the knot's tied there, that's overhand. Then there is dressing the knot to make sure it's laid correctly to where it's not all twisted and bungled up. That's still a knot, but it looks like crap. And then, so dressing it makes it look nice, which I call finishing. And then there's called setting the knot. And I want a good set to it. So I want to cinch down to where it's not going to come off if there's a little lax, if there's a bounce or something. Now normally in rappelling, as soon as I put weight on here, it's going to set the knot. But if you set it, it's going to set it more correctly. If you didn't set it and you didn't finish it, when it sets, it might keep it loose, and then you end up getting slippage and fall and all that. So those are, again, terminologies that I'll be using as far as setting, dressing, finishing, and the other thing about finishing a knot and dressing a knot is it makes it for easy inspection. So I just tied an overhand knot and a figure 8 knot. Okay, let's go back to Sesame Street. Which one is the figure 8 and which one is the overhand? Now, it's pretty easy to tell a figure 8 that this is a figure 8 because it looks like an 8. And it's pretty easy to look at it and know that I've tied it correctly. And it's dressed because it's a single line. But there's double figure 8s. And a double figure 8 doesn't necessarily, I need a lot of rope for a double figure 8 because it takes up a lot of rope. So a double figure 8 may not look as neat, as easy to tell as figure 8. But if you dress it and make it look clean and neat, then it will look like a nice figure 8. And now this is kind of loose, which means it's not set. So I can set it by pulling on each strand individually and making sure that it looks dressed and set, and now I have a good figure 8. And this is probably the #1 anchor knot. Matter of fact, we used to carry the ropes, the brown ropes that I was showing you that we carried on the side to make our slings. This is how we would carry it a lot of times because it was an immediate, if we need to get it over something, we could get it over something and be ready to go. So when we're tying anchor knots or whatever, figure 8 is probably the most knot. If I'm using a knot, off a line is what I'll use. Now with webbing, now you don't use a figure 8 so much. You usually get webbing, make a loop, and put a D-ring through it. Then you have a D-ring with your rope and your thing. And it just makes it cleaner, less friction, and there's no knots. Remember, when you tie a knot, you weaken a rope. A rope loses anywhere from 20 to 70% of its strength when you put a knot on it, especially if you do the knot wrong. This is good. I talked about the major axis and minor axis of a D-ring. This is the major along the spine where it's supposed to be weighted. This is the minor. On a knot, this is the major axis. So if I'm rappelling off this knot, the weight is on the major axis. If I tie this knot and I tie this part here and this part here, I am not on the major axis, and this knot can do what's called, I'll loosen it up because under load, I'll show you what it does. So if I tied it, this figure 8 this way, when I pull this knot will do what's called rolling, and it will flip over on itself, and you lose it. And so, because not only do you not know the right knot, you got to make sure the knot is right for where the tension and pressure is coming. So a lot of things, I enjoy this. This was always kind of like my fun part. I enjoyed, and I really liked it when I got really scared people when I ran a SWAT team in Hawaii, Hawaii is the only Air Force base in the Air Force that has a full-time SWAT team. And so I was running it in 90 or 84, 83 to 85, somewhere in that area. And we used to rappel off, they had some really tall buildings in Hawaii, bullet holes from where they were bombing Pearl Harbor and all kind of shit. And we'd tie up the top, go get some anchor points and rappel off them all the time. Well, in order to be on a SWAT team, I always said, for the tryouts, because I didn't believe in that quota hiring somebody because I felt sorry. I didn't want a participation guy as my partner tying up my knots, killing me or my team members. So I had standards, and one of my standards was, you got to jump off the highest building off the building on a rappel rope, and you got to trust us, and we're going to tie you off, we're going to set you up, and you're going to go off the side of this building. And that usually got rid of all the wannabes that wanted to be on a SWAT team. And matter of fact, I don't think I ever had a woman try out. I had a couple women complain because they thought it was unfair that I made them rappel, and just because they can't rappel shouldn't mean they shouldn't be on the team. And then I'd have my boss come down and go, hey man, do you really need that rappel? I go, hey, hell yeah, I need it. And if they're too much of a pussy to jump off a building, then they're going to be too much of a pussy to give aid or to go off a building or to do something else that's dangerous. My light just went out, so I think I'm losing battery. All right. Well, shit. My battery ran out, so I grabbed my iPhone, and I had another battery. So I wanted to end the rappelling. I don't know how much I lost. I'll cut this in on the different gear and all the stuff, and next time we'll go over maybe some knots or anchor points. And hope you guys enjoyed it, because to me this is kind of fun, and I enjoy this. And then I had to get 2 letters today. I'm gonna go out and check. If you want to leave now, you can. I'm gonna go check on the boys and figure out what the hell all this whining and crying. It's kind of wet out, so see where the horses are at. See all these cattle that want to get over here, because I fed them and they probably smelt that alfalfa, and I'm like, dude, this dude's got the good hay. Don't you be pushing on that gate, boy. So all the cows are over there. I don't know where. I thought I saw my damn horses come over here. Hopefully they didn't get out. I don't like when they these cows hang right here, because they push. That gate isn't really secure. So if they push on that gate, it's gonna give them. So I'm gonna kind of jump at them, scare them. I'll get some hate here. All right, ready? I'm gonna start running. 1, 2, 3. Come on, get up, go, go, yeah. You got all this pasture to hang out here. You're hanging out right here at this gate trying to push. See this little thing right here, they don't know it, but it's not that tight. So I don't want to push them through getting in here, because I make big holes in my hooves. So here's where the cows aren't over here. So unless a baby got over here and got caught up and died, that must have been what the horses were looking all kind of spooky closer to the hill over here, and I don't know what the hell they were seeing. I need a tractor so bad so I can clean some of this shit up. Damn, I just can't. 15 grand for a damn tractor is crazy. Even that's cheap compared to some people. All right, what do we got here? Looks like a tree branch. That doesn't look like anything died. That looks like something's been running through there. More trees. So this is the area that I thought they were. So the vultures are right up here. You can see them. There they are. They're taking off. So the vultures are right up here. So if something died, sometimes they'll go right over it. Sometimes they go. But this area is where the horses were kind of acting like they were scared. I don't have much of a fence. You can tell my horses don't. If they wanted out, they could get out. It usually doesn't take much to keep horses that are happy in an area. Look at this big old tree. Damn, man, it took out the whole fence. But if I take that down, the horses will go through. They won't climb up there to get out. That was a big ass. That's a big tree. Shit, I haven't seen that big sucker. Ooh, doggies. So see, because they're crying, I was thinking maybe a baby got out over here. But the vultures are right on top of me, and I don't smell anything, and I don't see anything. But the horses were all kind of freaking out, like, dude, there's something over here. And they were kind of like, And he's got some sort of crop planted over there, so there's probably animals eating. But I don't smell or see anything, so I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know where my horse is at. I thought I saw him come walk this way. They're probably back on the other side. My tennis shoes are freaking soaked because I wasn't planning on coming out here. So now my socks are soaked. And I thought the horses were back here. The pond's getting a little water, but it's still kind of low. Sometimes I'll sneak. See, the wind's behind me, so the horses will smell me before I get there. Because it's blowing my scent. Yeah, all the vultures were right up on this area. And since the wind's coming this way, it's bringing the odor. Something might have died over there and they're just setting up over here. See, these damn horses are over here walking around out here freezing my ass off with wet shoes now. See, because the wind's blowing this way, you see all of this blowing down because we get like 17-mile-an-hour winds. But this creates a little wind block, so sometimes the horses will come stand behind here. Has a little wind block, which they're not. I hear a dog barking back here. I wonder if the horses went that way. Maybe the horses went that way and I didn't know it. I bet they're on the other side of this hill. Let me run because I'm getting freaking cold out here and my feet are getting wet. If I run, it won't get as wet. See if the horses get scared. When I come around the corner, they'll be like, what the fuck? Shit, they aren't even back here. Damn crazy mules tricked me. I thought for damn sure they were back here. I'll be damned. Well, I put some hay out here the other day, and it's gone. So they must have came and found. Oh no, it isn't gone. Shit, they haven't been back here. See that little pile of hay? Put that out yesterday. But the wind's been blowing this way, so they haven't been able to smell it. If we get a south wind, it'll go that way, and then they'll smell it, and they'll come out and grab it. Damn, I saw them both. Y'all saw them walk that way past the window. They must have walked past the window, tricked me, then went the other way. Shit. All right, let me turn this off and I'll find them. Okay, I ran back up here. Here they are. See them way in the back? I'll try to point to Buddy. He's like right there. Him and Mr. T. They're right behind that tree. I don't know what they're doing out there. But they tricked me. I should have looked that way before I walked all the way out there and got my damn pants and shoes soaking wet. Crazy mules tricking me, making me look like a stupid human. All right, so we'll end that there. I think we're done. Rappelling video 1. See y'all.